Hi folks, this is Vince with Dad's Gaming Addiction, and today we're going to quickly check out Monster Destruction. It's a card game for 2 to 5 players for ages 12 and up, with the average playtime being about 45 to 60 minutes. So what is Monster Destruction? Well, at its heart, it is a deck building game, sort of like Dominion. But unlike Dominion, instead of building provinces in order to earn victory points and the like, you're going to be taking on the role of some type of monster, and your goal is to destroy cities. And when you do that, you earn victory points. So, yeah, like other deck builders, you start off with a cookie-cutter deck. Everyone starts off with the same deck, but you can buy more cards as you play the game from the supply in order to grow your deck and basically make your monster stronger. So without further ado, let's take a quick look at the components and see how the game is played. Okay, so as you can see here, there are a ton of cards, 209 to be exact, and they're broken up across different categories. Over here on the left-hand side, this group of 4. Basically, these top 2 are your base cards, Smash and Exhausted. Like I was explaining at the beginning of the video, each player starts with a cookie-cutter deck. And in this game, they'll start with some Smash cards and some Exhausted cards. The Smash cards will provide players with energy, which is the currency in this game, and they can use that energy to buy these cards over here from the supply throughout the game. This Exhausted card really serves no purpose. It's sort of just like a card that you're trying to get rid of in order to, well, improve your deck. Down here you've got cities and monsters. As far as the cities are concerned, the cities are twofold. Not only do they provide players with victory points whenever you destroy one, but there's also some special things to look at down here at the bottom of the card, like special events whenever they're first drawn, sort of like a modifier of some sort to sort of change the rules of the game in some way. But they also provide players with victory points. Now, it's not the only card in this entire game to provide victory points. There are other cards in the supply that will provide you with victory points too. But this is the way that the game will basically end. Whenever the last city runs out, then players will count their victory points. Monsters. Each player starts with a unique monster, and each monster has some type of special ability. Like the Titanosaurus here. If you play one or more mutations during your turn, gain +1 energy. If you play one of more, okay, so there are some grammatical errors in these cards. If you play one or more enhancement, it should be or, not of. During your turn, draw a card. Plutonian, for each building you buy or gain during your turn, draw an extra card into your hand at the end of your turn. Gideon the robot, +1 energy for each enhancement you play during your turn, and so on. Now, these other cards over here belong to this deck, and this deck is basically your supply. It's comprised of a few different categories. You've got environments, enhancements, mutations, minions, and buildings. Buildings here, as you can see, will grant you some victory points in the upper right-hand corner. In fact, all of these cards here that I've drawn will provide victory points. Outer space is an environment. Once played from your deck, keep this card next to your monster. Special, when you play your first mutation on each of your turn, draw an additional card. So some cards will have passive abilities and permanent effects while they remain in play, which is pretty cool. Enhancements, mutations, minions like zombies here, gain +3 energy. As defense, you can reveal this card from your hand to avoid an effect on monsters. The Taj Mahal building here, you may pay 3 energy. If you do, gain the top card of the main deck. Use this ability any number of times this turn. If you choose not to, gain +1 energy. So there's a lot of different card effects to consider as you're drawing these cards from the supply. Game setup is pretty easy. What you'll want to do first is give each player 6 Smash cards and 3 Exhausted cards. Again, the Exhausted cards really don't do much. Players are going to be trying to get rid of those as quickly as possible, but the Smash cards can be used to buy cards in the beginning of the game in order to acquire some more cards. Each player also starts with a hand of 5 cards. Each player also gets one of these monsters either at random, or if they just want to choose one, that's fine. You'll also want to shuffle the deck. Now, the deck consists of every other card besides your base cards, your monster cards, and your cities cards. So every other card type is going to be shuffled into this huge deck, and then 6 are going to be laid out like this to form the supply. Unlike Dominion, where you can see every single card type in the beginning and just buy from it, you're sort of dealing out the supply throughout the game, and as things are bought, then more cards are drawn. If you've ever played Star Realms or if you've played Star Trek The Next Generation or Star Trek The Original Series deck building game, then you'll be familiar with this mechanic. As far as your cities deck is concerned, you're going to want to take out the Tokyo card first, just put it aside, and then shuffle up the rest of the cities and then deal 7. After that, you're going to put the Tokyo card on top like this. The rest remain face down. As cities are destroyed in this game, you'll take the city, put it into the player's discard pile, whoever destroyed it, and then they can use that city again as it comes up, and then they'll flip the next one over for either player to try and destroy. And honestly, gameplay is very simple. If you've played a deck builder before, then you'll be very familiar with how everything works. Each player gets a hand, and then what they'll do with that is play cards and try and get stuff from the supply. So we're going to take a look at my starting hand here. I've got 4 smash cards and 1 exhausted card. Now, the way this works is some of these cards have a little energy symbol in the bottom right-hand corner. This is the amount of energy that you get for playing this card. And again, energy is the currency in this game. You use energy to buy these cards in the supply. And if you look in the upper left-hand corner of these cards, you'll see a little battery with a number on it, and that tells you how much it costs. And again, this number on the top right is how many victory points it's worth at the end of the game. So that means that I have 4 smash cards. I can play 4 smash cards. I've got 4 energy here. This exhausted card basically is worthless, doesn't have any use really whatsoever. So I can buy something with a energy value of 4 or less. So I could do Liquefy, Power Cables, Opera House, Space Bats, Vampires, and Cars. The Vampires is a minion. If you play or have played a mutation or enhancement this turn, gain +3 energy, otherwise gain +1 energy. Well, I don't have any mutations or enhancements yet, really. So I'm going to ignore that one. Space Bats, draw a card. So as soon as this is drawn in the future, I'll be able to draw a card. So I think I may be interested in that one. The Opera House is actually worth 6, so I can't buy that. Power Cables, that's an enhancement, gain +1 energy. Mutation is this Liquefy here. Draw a card, so I could do the same thing as the Space Bats here. It's worth a little bit more, though, but it can be played as a defense. You may discard this card to avoid an attack. If you do, draw 2 replacement cards. This Cars one over here is an enhancement. If this is the first card you play this turn, otherwise discard your hand and draw 5 cards. Otherwise, +1. Again, some of the grammatical sentences, just the sentences in this game don't make a lot of sense. There are some grammatical errors, and some of the sentences are arranged in a weird way, and I'll get to that later, during my final thoughts. But I think what we're going to do for now is we're going to go ahead and buy the Space Bats. And do I want to buy anything else? Well, I'll leave it at that. I probably could have purchased the Power Cables if I wanted to, but I'm just going to keep things simple. Now, whenever you buy a card, it goes into your discard pile immediately. And then your hand and basically anything you've bought in your entire hand is put into your discard pile like so. And then whenever your discard pile, or whenever your main pile runs out, whenever you go to draw 5 cards to refresh your hand again, for the next turn, and you don't have enough, you'll shuffle your discard pile up and draw that many up to 5 cards. This monster, Electro Strike, by the way, you go first. So whenever you are Electro Strike, you always go first. Each time a card tells you to draw 1 or more cards during each of your turns, draw an additional card. So that actually works out to my advantage, because whenever this bat is drawn, Electro Strike's ability will kick in, and I'll be able to draw an additional card, which is good. So as Electro Strike here, I'm going to want to try and focus my purchases on cards that, give me the ability to draw more cards, if that makes any sense. So after that, players will go ahead and draw back up to 5 cards, or the player in question will draw back up to 5. I'm going to go ahead and shuffle this real quick, and boom. And then this player will be able to use that on his next turn. Alright, so how does the game end? Well, players will continue building up their decks, playing cards and the like, until these cities are all gone. And again, what you're going to want to do, you're going to want to match the energy cost in the upper left-hand corner. This Tokyo card is 9 points. So a player here is going to have to come up with a hand of about 9 energy or more than that in order to knock that out. But whenever a city is destroyed, you're going to actually put that into your discard pile, and you'll be able to play that later because, you know, these cards do have effects on the bottom that you can use, and even some energy here that you can use to help you purchase cards in the future. But whenever you destroy a city like that, the next one is flipped over, and then when that one is destroyed, then the next one is flipped over, and so on and so forth. And when the last city is destroyed, and you can't flip any more over, that'll signal the game's end. Alternatively, if this deck runs out, if this supply deck runs out and you can't fill the supply back up after you buy something, I should have done that earlier, but after you exhaust that supply deck, the game will also end. At that point, players will go through their entire deck and add up the value in the upper right-hand corners of these cards. This one's worth 5. This one's worth 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. So the cities are worth a good bit, but these other cards will give you some victory points too. And the player with the most at the end of the game will win. Alright, so there you have it, a very brief look at Monster Destruction. It's worth noting that I did not cover all of the rules found in the manual. This was just a brief overview to give you an idea as to how the game is played. As far as what I thought, I think this would make an excellent gateway game to help anyone that hasn't played deck builders before. It's very simple. Like Dominion, it's not too complicated. I like the fact that there is a huge supply. I mean, there's 200 cards in this game, and the bulk of it is this supply here. So there's no shortage of card effects. The card art is pretty nice. Again, one complaint I do have is that someone didn't run spell check or grammar check before printing some of these cards. At least 2 of the monsters had grammatical errors in the description. So, you know, there's that to consider. But the art is pretty cool. It's catchy. I like the card backs themselves, and the stock is really good too. It's pretty thick. They're not going to tear easily. I'm not going to try doing it, of course, but they're not like the paper-thin cards that you might see in other sim games. My main gripe with this game is the price. And some reviewers don't even mention the price in their videos. I don't know why. But I do, because I'm a consumer first, and, you know, if you are, more than likely you are a consumer too. Very few developers and publishers watch these videos. Mainly people watch these videos to see whether or not they want to buy this game in the first place. Well, the retail price on the official website is $37 or $38, something like that. And as someone who's played and bought and reviewed a lot of games, I can tell you that's very high for the deck building genre. You've got Star Trek The Next Generation and Star Trek The Original Series deck building games. Those are all, they're both $20. You've got Star Realms, which is like 13 or 15 bucks on Amazon. Dominion, I think, is in the $30-ish range, but it's $30 or so. I'm trying to think what else. There's a lot of deck building games out there, but the majority of them are under $30. In fact, most of them can be found around $20. I think The Hobbit, possibly Lord of the Rings, I don't remember. But long story short, I think this game is overpriced for what it is. There's a lot of other games out there that'll give you the same deck building experience, but they're cheaper. Now, with that in mind, this isn't a bad game. I'm not trying to say this game isn't worth picking up. It is worth picking up, but not at the $37, $38 price tag. If money is no concern to you, then by all means, you know, feel free to pick up this game. It can be easily taught. The gameplay mechanics are very simple. And again, I think it would make a great gateway game into more complex deck building games, just because it's very easy. The only thing you really have to worry about and pay attention to are the card effects on the very bottom, but a lot of deck builders are like that anyway. So yeah, if you guys want to check out my full written review, you can. www.dadsgamingaddiction.com. If you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel. That way you can keep up to date with any new content I plan to publish. This is Vince, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.